I have a home. Bienvenido me hogar nuevo. I finally chose a place. I think I saw about 18 different apartments throughout the city of Panama. I saw apartments in the neighborhoods of San Francisco, in Bella Vista, and El Cangrejo. I tried to stick to most of the areas that were pretty walkable. That actually was number one on my list. I wanted to live in a place that was super walkable and where I had access to everything I needed in just a short walk. And the apartment that I chose, that really fits the bill. Of course, I do love the building. There are a few things that I was looking for that it didn't have, just like the second bedroom and the lack of storage space. It has plenty of living space, but I did want a second bedroom just for when my company comes to visit. I have a pretty large family, but I had to be realistic and think about how often they would really be coming. I was able to make the decision mostly based on everything the neighborhood had to offer. I'm able to step out my door, and then within a 15-minute walk, I have everything that I need. There are restaurants, bars, coffee shops, banks, supermarkets, farmers markets, everything that you could possibly think of that you would need on a daily basis. I'm able to step out of my door, and within 15 minutes, I could walk there. I'm only 7 minutes away from the metro station, and on my way to the metro station, I passed by a bus stop. So if I wanted to stop and take a bus, but then that 5 or 6 minute walk, I could certainly do that. And then if all else fails, or if I'm just being lazy for the day, I could take an Uber for between $3 and $5 to just about anywhere I would need to go within the city. So this is why I chose this place. I did come and spend some time before I made my final decision. I spent some time in the neighborhood just to get a feel for everything, and it felt perfect. And I know that you guys probably saw just a little bit ago, this was from March of 2025. So this was a little over a year ago. So of course now I've had plenty of time to furnish the place and make it feel like home. Now that you've seen the apartment I chose, I hope that you've enjoyed following along the journey, but I want you guys to know that there are several things that you should consider before renting in Panama. The renting process is a little different from how it is in the US. So back at home, of course, we're used to renting from a large corporation when we rent an apartment for the most part. But here, most units in apartment buildings are individually owned. Sometimes they can be owned by a company or owned by an individual. But here, all units in a building aren't typically owned by one person or corporation. And with that being said, each individual owner has the right to charge the price that they see fit. And it's usually not a huge discrepancy between others, but sometimes there may be $100 or $200 difference. And in Panama, everything is negotiable. So if that's something that you're not comfortable paying, feel free to try and negotiate. I do have to say my process of securing an apartment here in Panama was pretty simple, but I credit a lot of that to my realtor, and I've mentioned him below. I started my search on February 27th, and I was in this apartment by March 15th. So everything moved pretty quickly. I think I initially saw the place on March, maybe the 3rd or 4th, somewhere around there. And then within 10 days, I was in the apartment. So I would say that moved pretty fast. I did furnish the place pretty much alone. It took a while. Actually, it took several months for me to get everything that I needed to really find the places that I wanted to shop. And that'll be another video. But it was a challenge. I think if I had to do it again, I probably would do it all over, just because being able to furnish my own home makes it actually feel like a home. So even though it was challenging, it was certainly worth it. Not everyone's process or experience will be the same, but here's a list of things that my owner required for me to present before I could rent the unit. 2 things I would have done differently would be to look a little longer and to try and stay in the neighborhood. If I had more time, I would have extended my search a little. I only looked for about 2 weeks before deciding on a place. So sometimes that doesn't always work out because it could be a great place, and if you let the time pass you by, you may not be able to secure the place because someone else already has. But I think if you have the time, to take the time and just look a little longer and make sure that everything works out. I would also have stayed in the neighborhood. I stayed pretty close by in Bella Vista for several weeks. I think I was in Bella Vista for about 2 months actually, and that was the initial area that I wanted to stay. I probably wouldn't have changed my mind about the neighborhood just because I talked about how walkable it is and how it has easy access to everything. but if I were new in coming here, that would definitely be something that I'd recommend, is to stay in the area. Even if you can't stay in the building, you could stay in a hotel or an Airbnb nearby. And also keep in mind that a lot of these buildings, as I mentioned, they're individually owned. So you may have a long-term tenant in apartment A, and in apartment B, there may be somebody that's just renting it out as an Airbnb for a week. I think there are a few things that we don't tend to think about, especially if we're moving from one country to another, when we're trying to rent a new space. Be sure to ask these questions before signing a lease. Check the water pressure and ask about hot water. Coming from the US, I know most of us are probably used to strong water pressure and always having hot water. But since coming to Panama, I've stayed in some temporary places that had the tiniest trickle of water that I just couldn't deal with long term. Some units may not have any hot water, and some may just have lukewarm water or hot water that lasts for just a little while. I've stayed in a place previously, the hot water lasted for an entire 1 minute. So you could get a really hot shower for 1 minute and then that was it. Or there was hot water in the shower and no hot water in the kitchen sink. Ask about backup generators. The reality is, power outages are very common in Panama, and I work remotely, so I need my power. I do have a backup portable battery that I can use to keep some things powered. And typically the power outages don't last long, but if you work from home, if you're in the middle of meetings, if you have certain deadlines that you're on, you're gonna wanna not ever be disconnected. So make sure that you do ask about backup generators. My building actually has a backup generator that powers the entire building. I've heard of some people say that their buildings have backup generators that only power the common areas. So that's a question you must ask. Does this building have a backup generator? They may say yes, but ask, does it just power the common areas or does it power the entire building? Ask to see previous electricity bills so you'll get an idea of what to expect. I've heard of people having to pay upwards of $500 and $600 in electricity bills, especially out in some of the rural areas. So that's something that you may need to consider. You may find an apartment for half the price of what I'm paying for my apartment, but then your electricity bill may be quadruple the price. So that's definitely something that you need to consider for sure. There are so many more things I can share about my experience in moving abroad to Panama. Please let me know any questions you may have, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Ciao! Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.